Thank you, Manish, very much for joining me today. This opportunity, I think, is a great time, and I appreciate you and the organization taking the time to, and frankly, the investment in order to bring what I think is a very important conversation to market. So, if you don't mind, before we get into why don't you introduce yourself, the organization, and then I don't know, personalize this a little bit. Like, tell us something interesting about yourself that people may not know.
Sure. Thanks, Lee. Nice to be with you again one more time. I'm Manish Dalal, President and founder of ZKTeco USA, a global leader in security and time management solution provider. And we are headquartered here in Alpharetta, Georgia. Myself, 30 years in this industry now, and every day add five more white hair. uh, well, but it's an exciting time to be in this industry. Uh, Something about myself, this last 2 years, this industry has rekindled my passion for my love for art and music, and I'll tell you why. Because the shift of the user experience is now more visual, and what better way than to convey it through art and music? And that, I think, is something which I have hidden for a long time, but I was a keyboard player and I've started practicing that again. And at the same time, my love for my art has rekindled again. So it's pretty interesting.
Oh, that is interesting. I too played keyboard growing up, so I didn't know
Wow.
this. This is new. So we'll bring the '80s back, and we'll get
Sure.
into actually into doing that. No, I appreciate you sharing a bit about that on yourself. So I'll start with just some ideas around the current state of access control. I call these my greatest hits at this point. But I think what's nice is that, frankly, since at least 2020, when I've been talking about this stuff publicly, a lot of
Yeah.
it's staying true to currently now, and it's really starting to. You're seeing it take hold and traction, not just be a trend. There are really these inevitable things that are going around. The first one that I always like to talk about is the phase change that is happening of the entire industry, frankly, the expectations, the how we bring product to market, how we talk, communicate, the borders of which our different companies work with it. Like everything at this point is changing, and like moving from ice to water. We're at that point in the phase change, which is that slush period. That the water still exists, if we call that sort of the old truths.
Yeah.
The new exists. I mean, maybe some of the future stuff isn't here yet, but there's some
Yeah.
real stuff that we would have called future a long time ago, like the ability to have conveniences. Like that was always a bad thing, and now you can have it. Enterprise software impacting the industry heavily at this point. Got off a call recently around an organization you would never imagine would be in our space is all of a sudden here, and the language, the way they expect APIs to work, things like that is
Yeah.
it's new and great on that end. It introduces some issues, if you would, but it also brings more opportunities. These new value and expectations of how we show up, how we sell our products, how we feature sets, how we compete. But all in all, in my opinion, it's a net positive opportunity because of the fact that, and this is where I'll stop here and we'll move into a question for you,
Yeah.
is that there's the foundational part of our industry, the utility that we have is like a fundamental right in a lot of ways for people. Safety and security, keeping bad people out, protecting people and things that are there. That's like a utility that we've been able to do for a very long time. But now the value is this plus side. It's like, all right, now that I have this utility, how do I extend it beyond that? And then the value creation that comes from it
Yeah.
on that side, whether it's demanding it in certain verticals, or sort of the buzz and the new opportunities that are being brought to it. That plus side is the extra that at some point will probably take over the utility and is sort of the revenue
Yeah.
generation and most of the conversation that's here. But as you're seeing it, and I talk about these high level things, like what are some fundamental shifts that you see reshaping the access control market of why we need to have this conversation now. And I want to hear it in your view. Like, what is your view of these fundamental shifts?
Yeah. What you just said, 100% agree with that. And Lee, last I would say about 1 year, I've been more in the field, moving around the country, including Canada, as well as overseas. And what I'm seeing is the fundamental shift. What you mentioned about is uh, access control is not just access control. It's not just card reader and a panel, because now the customer or the end user expects access control. The definition of access control has changed completely. It is access, video, visitor management, intercom, all put together. Because if you do not have a complete solution, it does not, customers refuse to accept that as an access control solution. So that's number one shift. Number two is, all the existing infrastructure which is in place does not meet their current needs. Uh, People want to use newer technology, newer, better user experience, and now the rip and replace scenario is is in question, because the labor to replace all that stuff, and the making it work with the legacy system, that is not possible. So that has brought in a fundamental shift in how the channel operates, and the business models have changed completely. So that is another big change which our industry is still grappling to come to terms, that how does the manufacturer, the installer, the dealers or system integrators and distributors and manufacturer reps and the end users, they all can coexist in this scenario, right? So that is the second thing. And then the third is the economies of scale. And the theme of the series, what we have is that if I'm investing in a new infrastructure today, how do I make sure that it will be relevant, and I'll be able to scale it, expand it, uh, and use it for next 5 to 10 years, because they don't want to have or go through that same cycle again. uh, and with the adoption of cloud, the software piece is out. Like, you don't need computers and servers running on-prem and all those stuff. So it's very very interesting how different technologies are perceived in different parts of the world, and how they use it and how they want to expand it.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting, because it's going to move into our second point that we have here, but I'll pick on it a little bit, then I'll ask you a question on that end. Is that one of the things is the fundamental? It sounds like behavioral changes also in the consumer of the expectations, where um, we've been somewhat predictable of how we at least showed up as an industry and the expectations that were there, and we saw incremental changes on top of the last 30 years of what was built yesterday. I just needed to tweak it a little bit more to fit, the application that may be there, but there wasn't a lot of change when it came to the behavioral side. But coming out of the pandemic, you start to, I do think we talk, and we're going to talk about it later too, around the idea that trust and comfort around what I was buying before being what I need for tomorrow, when all I had to worry about was the past, frankly, and just make sure we did a little bit more that was there. So being in a position to be able to extract value out of the system that goes, again, beyond what is there is like fundamental. But like you're saying, the infrastructure isn't necessarily set up to support what a lot of the people wanted to do. The budgets, I'm guessing, also weren't necessarily matching what's going on. So there's a lot of pressures now in order to what feels like swoop through what has been the sort of the
Yeah.
wormhole of the past to get to this new opportunity of the future on that side. Um, as we think about that, though, the customer pain points seem to be being highlighted more in a lot of places. So can you talk a little bit about, like, you talked a little bit about what the customer pain points are, but dig a little bit deeper for me, if you would. Like, why all of a sudden, isn't the infrastructure set up properly for what's needed? What are some of these pain points that people have from legacy systems to today? And then if you do believe that if we can align on the fact that there was a behavioral change that happened during COVID on that side, like how has the pandemic permanently changed some of those behaviors? Can you speak to those for me?
Sure, sure. So, when we first connected after pandemic, Lee, if you remember, it was all about remote working, hybrid working,
Yep.
co-sharing spaces and workspaces and all those stuff. So the fundamental shift there itself was that there was not a one person with a plastic card or a fob entering the building, and between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m., Monday to Friday, etc., all those stuff, that changed completely, right? The scenario. So now you have to cater to your employees, to your visitors, to your remote workers, and all those stuff. And then what happened is, because the employees were remote, now the issuance of credential became the biggest pain point, right? Because now you can't mail them a plastic card, or it was very inefficient that somebody had to physically do all that work and deliver a card to the user. And that's why the rise of the mobile credentials or QR code credentials came into play. So that was a major fundamental shift. And then all the existing readers on the doors did not support that. So that was the first major change what the customers had to go through. The second thing was, people started shrinking their offices, or later, 3 years down the road, now they are expanding offices in different floors, different cities, different countries, and now they want a uniform system to be implemented everywhere. So the integrator who is installing, now they need to scale up. They need to be knowledgeable about all the modern security and the technology what they have to implement. So they had gone through some learning curve, because previously the legacy systems could be installed by even a locksmith, could be installed by electrical contractor, because it was just pulling the wires, connecting it to the computers, and then programming the system. But that has changed with the cloud and network and security and all those stuff. So that's the second thing which has changed. Then, in last 3 years, the cost per door, installation cost per door, especially in North America, has almost doubled. What was 5 years ago like $1,500 per door, now it is close to $4,000 a door. And if you go to cities like New York or Chicago, where you have to go in a union building, it's even higher. So that has also now put a lot of pressure on the manufacturer, distributor, or system integrator to reduce the cost of installation. And the only way to do that is come up with a hardware as a service model and software as a service model, because previously it was just the software as a service model. But now, with the cost of hardware plus installation also plays a major, or is a quite a significant number. And this is a complete disruption of the business and the channel, which the industry is still trying to get to understand this, how to make it work. And the end user now is so well educated. I just give a simple example. The doorbell, the video, simple doorbell with camera has completely changed the user experience and the expectations of the customers. That how do you bring that simplified technology onto the commercial security with the piece of hardware, software, and apps, everything built into it. And how do you provide a seamless user experience? So that is a big change. The other thing is, system integrators, even the next generation, the ones who have taken over from their family business or are new in this industry, who have come from the IT field or audio video field or telephony field, they are all experts at programming systems through writing some small codes. And now today you can get web relays from Amazon or anywhere and program and tweak it in such a way that you can meet the customer's requirements, either through connecting it to the existing infrastructure or hardware, and then writing a small code, and hopefully maybe in 2 years the AI will write the code for them. You just have to tell what it's supposed to do. And so it's amazing how this all will shift and change in even in next 2 years.
Yeah, it's funny. As you were saying this, I was writing down
Yeah.
like a summary of the shifts, and let me just rattle down the list of a lot of
Sure.
the great stuff you said there. So there was a use case shift, right? Like the remote work side that you talked
Yeah.
about. There's a modality shift because all of a sudden things that would have historically been seen as not viable in our industry all of a sudden were because the use case has shifted, right? Like
Yeah.
QR codes. And again, this is a somewhat of a North American focused conversation because there
Yeah.
are parts, as you know, like QR codes working quite fine and were readily, I remember being in Japan and in the hospitality marketplace, the QR code has been for quite a while, been
Yeah.
okay, but here there was a modality shift. There's a hardware shift. There is an application shift of that hardware. There's a complexity shift of the system, the expectations of them not being so complex. But then because of the changes, there's a higher level of complexity introduced because it's new.
Yeah.
You have model shifts, like hardware as a service, software as a service, expectations shift from a customer standpoint of how these systems would work pretty much overnight, which is
Yeah.
like profound, especially of an industry that has worn a badge of honor around this idea that they do things slow. Well, until the customer tells them so. There's a
Yeah.
discovery shift of how end users start to learn, and then an overall all of that. Oh, and a cost shift also you mentioned at that point, right?
Yeah.
So like all of that is happening at the same time,
That's right.
which makes it dizzy. While at the same time, I think we would agree there's pockets of places within our industry where nothing has changed,
That's true.
right? Which
That's
makes, I
true.
think, actually adds it actually would be easier if it was a binary change
Yeah.
of like went from what we just talked about to this. But actually, the complexity here is that both of the worlds, again, the phase change of water to ice, both are existing at the right time,
That's
and
true.
it impacts a lot to be able to make choices, like even just like how do you manage a roadmap of development of work, or
Yeah.
how do you as a customer make a buying decision when you can literally feel the ground underneath you moving at the same time, while
Yeah.
there's like out in the distance you can see the same truths that you've had for a while. It's just confusing
It is.
overall. In looking at all of those, I want to pick on the expectation shift because that's the part that leads me to the next that I wanted to talk about was, and I think it's frankly the meat of a lot of what we talk about here,
Yeah.
is the customer's expectation of what they've determined for the past 30 years is what has been satisfying their use cases that they have. But now as the use case shift, the modality, all of these things, it comes down to the customer's expectation. I'll use three of them. Choice, so the flexibility of decisions being made, the trust that the product is what is needed for today and tomorrow versus based off of what yesterday, right? And then
Yep.
the comfort that who they partner with, they can trust is the right choice. Because if these new partners aren't necessarily adopting the modality that is
Yeah.
needed for the use case, or they haven't an architecture hasn't been adopted, or they're not innovating in the ability to, if I can't do rip and replace because of the cost structure, like
Yeah.
you all of a sudden, like instead of it always being like, well, it is what it is, now it's like, no, I got to bring. So there's a comfort in who you're doing. I get, if I was to ask you, do those resonate with you? Like, yeah, that makes sense. And then how are systems failing to meet the evolving expectations of the buyer's decisions? And because then my follow up after that's going to be about the future as we
Hmm.
move forward. But like when we look at it currently now, like if that is from a value expectation change of choice, trust, and comfort, how are the systems failing currently now that are not for today and tomorrow? Like what are some of those tenets of what they are doing that doesn't meet the customer where they need to be?
Great question, and I think it's very very timely. I would say. So I'll give you a small example. We had a customer, a small gym in Utah, um, which had two doors, and the members would use their key fobs to enter the doors and come to the gym every day. Now this gym owner found out that the key fobs were being passed on, and he was losing revenue and stuff like that. So he says, how can we solve this, or not? He came to us, how can we solve this problem? He must have researched this, and he says, he called us and said, I want to implement a man trap solution. So if I see two people in the vestibule, my door should not open. Now, can you imagine, like words like man trap and all those stuff was our legacy, high security, system terminology and all those stuff. So, and he called us and said, do you have a solution for that? Not only that, then he says, look, I want to adopt mobile credentials because I don't want to use barcode. I don't want to use anything which can be copied and, duplicated and all those stuff. So I said, well, how about a biometric system rather than barcode and stuff like that? He says, sure, why not? And sure enough, he implemented face readers. He implemented a man trap solution. We put two people counting cameras to solve that problem. And on top of that, he moved the software from a simple laptop in his gym to a cloud, and linked through API with his gym billing CRM software, or whatever the case may be. So can you imagine a single gym in Utah, a father and son owned establishment, thinking about these kind of things and actually implementing and spending money to do it, which was beyond imagination, 5 years ago. And so that is what this industry is, or the customer's expectation, as you asked, is going towards. And as I said before, access control, visitor intercom, this is all now and linking it with camera. It's expected. It is expected. Last week I was at a major camera manufacturer's annual event, and now they will have like a GPU on a camera on which you can build your own applications, and it has multi-lens, and it has this focus and that focus. I mean, I'm not a camera expert, but basically the camera will do everything, right? So it's just amazing, how this whole shift is going to happen in next 4 years. And frankly speaking, the customer now has the ability to tweak it and customize it by themselves. So they are not dependent on industry. They just want a reliable, as you said, a provider of hardware, software, and services as far as maintenance or support is concerned. And everybody asks, okay, where's your cloud? Okay, well, there are three options, and once you mention those three names, nobody has any issues with that. Everybody knows the uptime, and everybody knows how stable it is and stuff like that. So with the hardware, the expectation is that, okay, today I choose to use this modality or this credential, and then tomorrow I want to use this. Do I have to change everything? Do I need to change the reader? Do I need to? So all those kind of conversations have started, and I'm glad that the end user is involved in all these conversations, whether it's a small office to a large enterprise customers. And that is where now there's a level set of expectations, there's a level set of knowledge transfer, and things are moving in the right direction, I would say.
Yeah. So, I mean, can you dig a little bit more into, because you're getting into also some non-negotiables that
Yeah.
of how these systems. So, can you speak a little bit more to that, if you don't mind? Like, what are some of these non-negotiables? Like, I heard you on that end, like the bringing together of video and access. Like, the expectations are there, that's there. This there's an expectation clearly changing that you're talking around, of being even just the the habits of the engagement with the end user into the process, what's here
Yes.
with the different parts of the ecosystem. You mentioned a reimagination of like how hardware works, where it's not just a throwaway or a limiter to actually deliver some of these functionalities, that the actual sort of infrastructure that's there, the ability to sub things out and put things in, like some of those expertise. But what are some other, if you don't mind, keep going on this. What are some of the other non-negotiables that need to go forward?
Sure. So one of the biggest non-negotiable, I think, is on the software side. So either a customer needs a cloud only, or they need a hybrid solution, where if the cloud is not available, they should be able to operate the system locally or store the data locally but still access it from the cloud and stuff, and vice versa. So that is 100% a non-negotiable. The reader at the door, they do not want to change it again. So they want something which can read multiple credentials, and it can be different options, but they certainly do not want to go with a single a modality reader at the door. uh, the third thing is, they should be able to expand the system, not only in terms of number of doors or number of cameras or something like that, but today virtually everything in the building is IP based. So including their air quality monitors or sensors, their alarm sensors, or whatever the case may be. Everything needs to be connected on to a system. And the last thing is about the reporting. So nobody wants to design reports using some report builders and stuff. uh, Power BI is has come a long way, and everybody is using it now. And with the introduction of AI, getting answers from the system or commanding a system to respond to a natural language questions, uh, that is non-negotiable. Everybody wants a lot of data analysis to be done, either on the system level, or they should be able to filter all the noise out, because now you have so many devices connected and so much data being generated. So those are some of the non-negotiables. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's what's nice though is they're non-negotiables, and I think this moves into some of the, if I was to summarize some of what you're talking about here, like in the key points, is those non-negotiables are like now. These
Yeah.
shifts that you talked about are now. This isn't a future setting like conversation of like us pontificating about what the industry is going to look like 10 years from now. It's like this is the stuff that has to happen now. And part of the reason why I know we wanted to do this was that the
Yeah.
conversations need to happen now, and there needs to be a level of flexibility. Like there's been a rigidness to our industry for quite a while, and frankly I think it was a good thing. And so like we kind of understood, if we did these five things, whatever, I just pick up a number, but like these
Yeah.
five things, we can deliver you a level of safety and security. Whereas now, because of all these shifts that are happening, that flexibility for us to basically say, like, maybe some of those things that we were doing aren't the things that we need to be doing today. And at the same time, we talk about how the market is just opening up to a bigger opportunity than what has existed before, which at that point is like gasoline on top of the shifts that are happening. Because unlike, I would say, historically, where the shifts were happening, but we couldn't extract more value as an industry while also delivering higher levels of value, now we can. And
That's
that's
true.
actually the exciting part. I would also say it's the frustrating part. It's like, why why are there certain parts of our market that can't see this?
Yeah.
But the good news is that there's a lot of people that do. You and
Yeah.
I spend a good amount of time with a lot of other people that share these things competitively as well.
Yeah.
You mentioned the camera company that you're with. I know they share some of the visions of what's going on that end, and these are not small companies. These
Yeah.
are global players. While at the same time, to be fair, there's small companies also that exist that are helping accelerate and do things that are different on that end. So all of that is great. If you know, you're deep in this, so like, what are some immediate steps that the listeners can take if they hear this that are, I would say, two camps that are probably the same. Your advice will work for both of these. Like, what are
Yeah.
some immediate steps that they can take to either accelerate what they're already doing or get into the boat with those that are that are seeing these shifts and doing something about it right now?
So I think on it's I would put it as a two-part answer. So first is on the hardware side. You have to be open to integrate with a lot of different hardware. I'm not just talking about the reader at the door, but a lot of different hardware, and there the challenge, not the challenge, but the good part is that on some of the things it is standards. There are protocols which are industry standard, from our industry, from outside of the industry. So it's pretty much I would say relatively easy to implement that. Um, Most of the devices now being network based, so you can communicate with them very efficiently, either through the software, or mobile to the software to the device, and stuff like that. And then I think the fundamental shift on the credentials or the modality is that no two users will be the same. It's not just plastic cards, or it's not just low frequency or high frequency. There's too many different options which even a single customer might use, because they might use something different for their employees or users, something different for visitors, something different for contractors, because you have to adapt to those situations, right? So that is changing. The edge devices are becoming more and more smarter because they have a lot more computing power. Everything needs to have a display, because you need to be interactive with the user. They need to see the messages, the colors on the screen, etc. All those stuff, and that's a fundamental shift. And then on the software side, again the same thing. If your software or platform does not have API, I'm sorry, it's not acceptable. It's not future proof. You are too closed to be bought or implemented, and nobody likes to use that. Uh, I know that biometrics in this part of the world or North America is not so popular in the industry, but you have been to Asia and Middle East and everywhere, and the proliferation of biometrics over there is just incredible. The level of security, the comfort the users have over there versus here, it's very different, and that actually solves a lot of other issues of issuing the credentials and all these other things. So I think that those are the things which is happening now, and things are moving in the right direction, both on the software and hardware side.
Wonderful. So if people want to find out, like they listen to this and they're thinking, all right, I'm in, I get it, or I'm here too, and I want to talk more to Manish. Like, how do people get a hold of you? Where do you get more information? What's the best way to do that?
Sure, you can email me at manish at zkteco.usa.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, and I'm always present at almost all the trade shows. So you can search for ZKTeco USA booth there, and you can get in touch with me.
Yeah, absolutely. The man travels more than I do. So he's not hard to get a hold of. So
Yeah.
Manish, thank you very much. I think this is a great start to this 3-part series. I'm looking forward to the next one. We'll be filming this live at IC West April 3rd from 12:30 to 1:30 in the ZKTeco USA booth, where we're going to have an ongoing conversation around the trends that you talked about, but also take advantage of being in this place where a lot of the trends are actually going to be showcased and done. So this will be a deep dive into the industry trends at IC West. We're going to keep the naming of this next episode pretty simple on that end. But I want to thank you, Manish, for the opportunity to do this. I appreciate you bringing your insights and the perspective. And I agree. We need to have this conversation now, and we need to have a conversation about embracing flexibility. So thank you.
That's correct. See you, Lee, April 3rd, booth number 23089.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of our first episode of The Future of Flexibility. I want to thank Manish for his insights today and for helping us establish the critical foundation for the conversations ahead. As we've discussed, the access control industry stands at a pivotal moment, where the decisions we make today will shape security infrastructure for years to come. The challenges are real, but so are the opportunities for those willing to embrace the flexibility, interoperability, and user-centric design. Before we go, I'd like to invite you to join us for our next episode, the deep dive into industry trends at ISC West, where we'll be exploring the most impactful developments revealed at this year's premier security showcase. We'll be examining the three major trends that are transforming access control. First, the rapid rise in adoption of mobile credentials and what that means for the traditional authentication methods. Second, the industry-wide shift towards OSDP as the new standard protocol, and how this is reshaping system integration. And finally, we're going to tackle the fascinating balance between robust security and seamless user experience, and explore how biometrics and multi-technology readers are finally bridging this long-standing gap. If you find value in this discussion, please subscribe to The Future of Flexibility wherever you get your podcasts, and share your thoughts and questions on social media, #Future of Flexibility. This podcast was produced by the Access Control Executive Brief in partnership with ZKTeco USA. I'm your host, Lee Odess, and I look forward to continuing this essential industry conversation with you over the next few months. Thank you.